Hi, everybody. It's Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing Live, number 107. Welcome to the program today. We're going to be talking about should I always sing with a lower larynx, or just on high notes? We're going to answer that question. Talk a little about the larynx because this comes up frequently. Questions about the larynx is a very popular question that I receive on a continual basis. So we're going to cover some of those things today. And hey, Gary, nice to see you today. And Two Chooks, hias. Nice to have you guys here. Welcome. So we're on our pre-show show today, and so just to start things out right off the bat, do you think about the position of your larynx? That's, this thing right here where the Adam's apple is and so forth. When you're singing, yes or no? Just let me know in the comments section below. Do you think about the larynx when you're singing? I don't. Not too much. Not anymore. I don't know if I ever did a lot, but it is something that people talk about all the time, and there's even some things of debate about it. So we'll cover more of that today. So it can have a huge impact on your singing. Hey, Mike, nice to have you here today. Great to see you. And let me just take this little thing off of the. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. All right. So, yeah, if you put your hand here on your Adam's apple, you realize that it moves a lot. I mean, up and down, and even when you're just talking, it's moving. If I inflect my voice upward, I can feel it moving around a lot. And so there's a lot of questions about the larynx and about what impact it has on singing. So Eve Love, I only do when I'm practicing. I kind of do about the same thing. I'm more interested in the larynx when I'm practicing than when I'm singing, and that's probably a good thing. So Evlove, I'm kind of curious why you think more about it when you're practicing, but maybe not so much when you're singing. Just curious why, because I think I have some feelings about it too, but wondering about you. George says, "Hey, George. Glad to have you here today." So we're still in our pre-show show. We'll start it in a couple of minutes here in the actual show. But thanks you guys for joining us. Hey, Subia, hi, nice to have you with us today. For those of you who don't know Subia, she lives in India, and it's like 1:30 a.m. her time, which is crazy, or 2:30. I'm kind of mixed up now, Subia, because we're on Standard Time. As of November, the first week in November, we went to Standard Time in our area of the world. So we're no longer on Daylight Savings Time. So, hey, Marnix, hi. Nice to have you here. Okay, so what are your thoughts on messa di voce? I think it's a really important skill to be able to have messa di voce. And the ability to go from very, very light to stronger or louder, and then from louder to softer is an indication of a real capability. And it's something that I couldn't do all my life. So Ev says, I don't know, Eve or Ev. I kind of leaning towards Ev. Evlove. I think of it more if it moves. Then I'm straining myself. If it doesn't move, then I'm practicing correctly. Okay. Yeah, so I kind of think of it too when I'm practicing in regard to if I'm doing a low larynx exercise, am I keeping the larynx down? I don't really think too much about the high larynx exercises and whether the larynx is high or not. But the low larynx, for sure, I tend to be much more aware of imposing the larynx down on those kinds of exercises. But I don't think about it when I'm singing. All right, it's top of the hour. Welcome, everybody. This is Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing Live, number 107. Today we're going to talk about this question. Should I always sing with a lower larynx or just on high notes? So maybe I should just say, tell me what you think. Yes or no? Should you always sing with a lower larynx? Maybe that's the question. Or not. Does it matter? The other question I asked in the pre-show show, and maybe it's easier to answer, is do you think about your larynx while you're singing? Do you think about the position of the larynx when you're singing? We already have some people who've answered, and I know that I actually don't. Not when I'm singing. I'm thinking about other things, but I'm not thinking about the larynx. Maybe sometimes. Okay, George says, let me see. I'm sorry I missed your broadcast due to last week due to Paradise Fire in California. Do you live in Paradise, George? I hope not. That's just for those of you who live out of the country of the United States. We've just had a huge tragedy in California with extremely large, over 200, like 240 square miles of fire, wiping out a whole city, over 12,000 structures, from what I understand now, homes and other things have been burned up, many lives lost, and it's potentially, we're at, like, as a last count, I think around 80 people they know have perished in the fire. It's just really tragedy. George, you live in Paradise. George, did you lose your home? I'm glad you're here, George. I'm glad you're alive. Did you lose your home? I just read an article, a piece yesterday by a couple Los Angeles Times writers, and they were giving a play-by-play example of people trying to get out of Paradise, California, just traffic jams, and there's like 70-mile-an-hour winds blowing these fires. It was incredible. I know there are some homes that were left standing, which is hard to understand how that could happen. I see. So you don't even know if it's still standing. George, my prayers are with you. My wife and I have prayed for the people in Paradise, California, and in that area. And our prayers are with you. I hope for the best for your home. So anyway, George, thanks for joining us today under such strenuous and difficult circumstances. And it looks like others here are also indicating. Two Chooks, my thoughts and prayers are with you, George. Subi, I hope everyone's okay in California now. I think the fire's 2/3 controlled as of this morning or last night. So, yes, George, there are lots of people thinking about you. So, anyway, as I say to some of my students, and rarely, if ever, do we have any issues so severe as what George is going through right now. But hopefully this is where you can forget all your troubles and all your difficulties. So Vicky says, best wishes also from Australia. Thanks, George. You brightened my day, sir, for just being here. So thank you. And keep me posted on how things are going. I just, I know they had, I read today where they had issues in San Francisco with the smoke and from the fires. They've had some difficulties with the airport, and this is really a seismic difficulty. It's not. This is not a minor problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that's um, perhaps one of the worst. I've certainly probably the worst I've ever lived through or heard of, and that we've experienced. I don't know if we have a history of something this severe. All right, so let's talk a little about the larynx first of all. All of us have a larynx, guys. The larynxes are larger than the girls's, and so we kind of refer to it as the Adam's apple. There's a large prominence here of cartilage that for gentlemen protrudes much more than ladies. So ladies, sometimes you actually have to take your finger and like trace down until you feel that first large bump. There's a small bump, but there's a larger bump. That's the upper prominence area of your Adam's apple, and behind that is where your vocal cords are found. They insert in the front. This is called anterior. They insert in the front and they attach in the back to some cartilage, and then they open and close like this. So they lay horizontally there. So in the larynx, if you put your hand here on your Adam's apple and swallow, just swallow, and you can feel the larynx in swallowing mode rise up and then come back down. And this is a very challenging thing. So let me just stop because I want to recognize some comments for George. I saw on the news, so sad to see houses burning. Watch houses burning. Thoughts and prayers to everyone affected. Akshay, all people and their families who are affected by the fire are in my prayers. Thank you, Akshay. Waltz for Days, I'm going to sing on stage for the first time coming Saturday since childhood. All right, Waffle Days. Awesome. They call it Eve's Orange. Adam's apple, Eve's orange. Hey, I don't think I've ever heard of Eve's Orange. All right, Two Chooks, thank you for that contribution. Okay, here's another thing. Try this, everyone. Hum. And while you're humming, swallow. What happens if you swallow while you're humming? The sound cuts out. You can't swallow and hum at the same time. Now what's going on, I'm sure there are probably other reasons, but when we swallow, we cut off the air supply. So I guess that's reason enough, right? But when we swallow, there's a lid that closes over the top of the cords, the vocal cords. And so when that lid, it's called an epiglottis, when the epiglottis closes over the top, it allows food and water and so forth to travel down the esophagus and protects the vocal cords and the lungs from filling with water and other debris. So it's a way to keep ourselves, if we have a little bit of water go down the wrong pipe, you've maybe heard that referred to, we start coughing to try and get that water or a piece of cracker or whatever to get out of your trachea. So it's and the vocal cords actually help do that. They can close, and if the epiglottis doesn't catch it, the cords can close and prevent water from and other things to get down into the trachea and obstruct the air passages and so forth, or get down into the lungs. So that mechanism is what we don't want involved when we sing. So if the larynx begins to come up while we're singing, it can be termed you're going into swallowing mode. If it starts rising up for any number of reasons, usually it's tension. and or bad habit. For us guys and girls, don't I don't see it as often for you, but I know it happens. But for us guys, when our voices change and we want to try and hit high notes, we end up doing this. Ah, ah. We reach up and try and get those notes. And so the larynx, we kind of like shove the larynx up because it kind of stretches the vocal cords and it's kind of squeezing out some sound just to try and hit a high note. That's what I did. And I don't know that I actually raised my neck up. I probably did. But I do know that but the larynx did come up, and I was pulling up I was pulling up the chest voice. So this tends to raise the larynx. So when that happens, everything kind of squeezes and closes tight, and then the vocal cords can't function as well because they're being squeezed. Now, we have a lot of people who sing that way. Let me take a couple comments from Vicky Williams, who said, regarding vocal cords, oh gosh, that's the first I've understood they are horizontal. Yeah, Vicky, I'm with you. You see them in the book. When you see them in books, they look like this, right? You just see this picture of this V-shaped thing, or sometimes like this. But you see them, it looks like they're vertical. And the reason is because when the doctors look at the vocal cords, they're down here, and we take a picture of it. And then we put it in the magazine, and that's what we see, because that's what we've taken the picture of, and it's from the top. And so we're like looking down on the vocal cords. It could, like you're from an airplane looking down at a crop circle or something in a field. And that's why they look like they're vertical. They're actually horizontal. And it helps to know that. George says, spirits are high, and I will sing at a December 2nd concert. Great, George. Gabrielle says, please, if you care to help, know which page is this, but I like to join you. This is my first time. Hey, Gabrielle, nice to have you here. Nice to have you with us. Akshay says, oh my gosh, hi Chuck, a really funny thing happened. I'm in India and it's 2:40 a.m. right now, and my mom came in. Okay, I hope I didn't get you in trouble, Akshay. In the room it said, who are you talking to while I'm listening to you? Oh, well, tell your mom hi for us, from all of us here. Akshay. Ink says, is it possible to have a naturally nasally sounding voice?
Well, I think it is. I think it's very possible. I've met a few people who have kind of a nasally, high larynx kind of sounding voice. Has anyone else out there ever heard someone speak like this? You can hear the larynx is up, and the sound is kind of,
it doesn't have to jam into your nose necessarily
to have a high larynx, but it is kind of a nasally sound, isn't it?
So I think that a nasal sound is sometimes a part of a high larynx. So I have heard people like that, and in that case, I don't recommend you sing like you talk. Okay, so yes, so I actually wanted to bring that up, Ink, and that is that there are my larynx wasn't that high, but it has dropped somewhat over the years of singing. I know that because I have a recording of myself when I interviewed my father to talk about his personal history so I could write it up and give it to the family. And this is like 20 years ago or more. It was actually before I started singing, my first interview with him, I believe. And I was surprised to hear my larynx up. Hey, Dad, I want to ask you a question. I mean, it's just kind of like up there. And I know I have seen over the years it has settled down. Now, I'm also aging, so I'm sure that's a part of it. But I know that a lower larynx has occurred over years as I've been working on my singing. So, thank you, Vicky. So, Jorge says Michael Jackson sounded like that. Well, Michael was, I don't know that he was nasally, but he talked like this. I know. I heard Seth Riggs ask him why do you talk that way, and he said, I don't know. I like it. My grandfather talked this way. So I think Michael's and the family, of course, could verify that, but apparently his grandfather also spoke in a lighter, kind of like a light head voice. But I've heard, and I've heard Mr. Riggs say this too, that Michael could sing down in the low E. So he had like, so he would have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm sure he had 3.5 to 4 octave range, and so even though he spoke that way, he had a lot of he could sing low if he ever wanted to. He did it in exercises. Okay, so actually, so when people say say people are born singers, so they have a natural lower larynx. I don't know that that's always the case. I don't think so. I don't think that that all born singers have a low larynx, or they've been born with a low larynx. I think there's a number of things that happen when people have kind of born with a gift. But I don't think that the low larynx is necessarily one of them. So Ink says that could be because of puberty, Chuck, because voices get deeper as we age. Yes, but I do know in my case that my larynx has dropped because of the singing. So Waffles for Days. No, when we say that people are born singers, we mean that someone is more naturally talented as singers. And I think that's probably more accurate. Yeah, Chuck, did you ever meet Michael? I never did meet Michael Jackson, but I've studied with Seth Riggs for a number of years. Now, I haven't seen Seth for, let me see. I had a lesson with him in 2016. Spent a week at his home, and then I had a couple of lessons on Skype, and I haven't talked to him since then. But over a period of about 20 years, I studied with Seth. In fact, I guess you can't really see it here, but let me see. I'm going to turn this around so you can see the top picture right there is Seth Riggs and I. And there are a lot of people who have their pictures with Seth, but I was there in 2000. Well, that picture was taken in 2011, in January 2011, and it was after a lesson that I had with him. I traveled to LA. He's 88 years old now, still teaching, and I understand he's doing well. Okay, so let's get back on to, all right, so let's try and answer this question, because it's something that, and we talked about this earlier, do you really think about your larynx when you're singing? And I think Eve said, Eve, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. She said she doesn't think about her larynx when she sings, but when she practices, she does, and I'm in the same situation. So I think that it's like, like an athlete who is lifting weights in the weight room, and they're concentrating on form and whether they're doing everything right, or a football player on the field going through, a receiver going through a certain route, or some kind of a sport where they're practicing what they do when they play. They're thinking about how they do it. So I think about how I'm doing it a lot of times when I'm practicing. But when I'm singing, I'm thinking about the words of the song and the character I'm playing, because I do musical theater, and those kinds of, the feeling of the emotion of the song and so forth. So I'm not thinking about technique, and I'm not thinking about larynx. Sometimes I do when I'm in the ensemble, because I want to make sure I don't oversing, and so I want to try and keep the larynx down and so forth. But typically speaking, I don't think about it when I'm singing. So if you just breathe through your mouth and let the larynx keep coming up, raising up, eventually it cuts off. I'll do that again. It just like, so it just closes up. Mr. Riggs calls it a sphincter action. And I think that it's just the closing action of everything kind of collapsing on itself. And so we really don't want that kind of motion going on when we sing. So what's the advantage of having the larynx down? Well, if the larynx, let's put it this way. Let's not talk so much about the larynx high or low. Let's talk about the larynx at the level of where you talk. Or in other words, the larynx resting at the level of where you speak, or a speech level. A speech level. So the larynx stays at the level, at its resting place, where it does when you talk. And I'm not talking about yelling or screaming or those kinds of things. In a person-to-person conversation, when you're relaxed and comfortable, the larynx is relaxed and resting. Very rarely, unless there's agitation and emotion and all kinds of other things going on in a heated conversation or something. But in it's going to move around then. But just in a regular conversation, like I'm having with you now, the larynx is probably even up a little bit. Because I'm not standing, I'm probably not projecting as well as I could by engaging my muscles, my abdomen, to help just kind of give me some projection here. If I do that, then it actually automatically starts feeling a little better. So the larynx, we want to, when we're singing and when we're speaking, we want it to be resting, just where it wants to rest. So the part of the question that interests me is, should I always sing with the lower larynx? I think we should always sing, if possible, and I'm going to give you a couple exceptions, but I think we should always sing with the larynx where it is at the level where we speak. The exception would be
If you speak like this, and we probably would say, you may need to work on getting the larynx down.
But we do that in our exercises. So what's an exercise to get the larynx down? It's that duh sound. If you put your hand on your Adam's apple and say duh, not just duh, but duh, duh. It's kind of a stupid sound. Duh. You hear that? Duh. And you can see it go down. Duh, duh. If I say duh, it doesn't move much. Duh. But if I say duh, it activates muscles below that pulls it down. So with that same sound, duh, we'd say maybe gee, gee, with a kind of a dumb sound, gee. And it's a great exercise. Gee, 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 gee. And I can do that exercise on that 1.5 scale, or gee, 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 gee. Ladies, yours would be gee, 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 gee. So, or even gee, 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 gee. Those kinds of exercises are going to help retrain the nervous system to keep the larynx down while we vocalize. Now, you notice I didn't say gee, 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 gee. I kept that dopey sound. Gee, 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 gee. So that it goes a little hooty or a little hollow sounding. Gee, 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 gee. So on those exercises, we want to do them where every single note has a kind of this imposition. But why do we do that? We do that just to get to help encourage to help establish a connected tone from the bottom to the top. Once we get that connection, we can go more normal, and we should. We want to discard the dopey sound. We want it to be more like we talk. We don't sing like that, so why would we want to? Or we don't talk like that, so why would we want to sing like that?
The same thing is true with the high larynx. We don't generally we don't talk like that, so why would we ever want to sing that way?
So, in all of the things that we're doing, particularly with this dopey sound,
Or with a high larynx exercise like nay, 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 nay.
we discontinue using them when we've established the connected tone from chest into our head voice, so that we, as we're traveling through that bridge, that middle of our voice, we're able to, that's established, ladies, without any break, crack, or straining, then we want to go more towards normal. Or we drop the G altogether. And more try and get to normal. Or we want to go to something more like we would use in a song, with closer to a word. No, 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 no. Or in the men's register, mum, 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 until it's normal and the larynx is staying down. Now, the alternative is the larynx comes up. I would say, and I did it wrong, I might say, mum, 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 mum. You can hear that doing it that way, it splats. Same thing would be true with the ladies. If I said, no, 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 no. So, in that case, we would want to impose the larynx down, because the larynx is coming up when we're doing that. No, 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 no. You can hear it, you can see it, you can feel it. So we have to use the dopey sound to keep the larynx down. No, 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 no. Well, now we're retraining the nervous system while we're also connecting the tone, and we're eliminating that. We're eliminating the pull. So it's a tool that we can use. It's very, very powerful. But once we can do that, once we can transition from chest to head without pulling, without breaking into falsetto, that's always a problem that many face when they're singing, and they break into falsetto. So we might have to go a little bit on the imposed side. And then once we can do that, we get more towards normal. Eventually, so we can go from chest, we can do that transition through the bridge where we're mixing the chest and head. So this is, the dopey sound is a tool that we discontinue once we establish that connection. So we don't always sing with a imposed larynx down. We should always sing with the larynx at our speech level. Now, what's the exception to that? Now, that's on low notes or high notes. It doesn't matter. The only exception would be that in some cases, in some genres of music, the larynx is slightly elevated. Now, I'm not saying that it's like a pulled up high, really high larynx, but the larynx is up a little bit, and so it's somewhat related to the genre you're singing, or maybe a character. Let's say there's a, in The Music Man, there's a character that sings "Chapoopy, Chapoopy," and he's really a character, and so very often he kind of, I think, I can't remember the character's name. Somebody will probably remember this. Sorry, all of you who have played the role and know the Music Man. But when he's singing "Chapoopy," his larynx probably is up a little bit, and even when he's doing his role, it might be up. Buddy Hackett is the one that played it in the movie. Thank you, Adam. Do you remember the name of the character in the show? I can't remember his name. Anyway, it's a really great role. It's very funny. Or Ado Annie. I'm just a girl who can't say no. That's from Oklahoma, and her character has that kind of high larynx kind of sound. Or from the Guys and Dolls, Adelaide. You know, when she in all her songs, and she kind of talks this way too. She's got that little accent she's from Brooklyn, and she sings several songs just like that. Well, poison can develop a cold, so she's got this little high larynx thing going, and so she'll sing with that high larynx. So there are some, Marcella. Okay, Marcellus. Plays Marcellus in The Music Man. Thank you, Adam. So now, again, when we're talking about high larynx, there are high larynx exercises, and we use those to what? Connect the tone from chest to head and help us be able to make that transition without cracking, breaking, or pulling. And it's nay, 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 nay. And again, once we are able to establish that, then we get more towards normal. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. No, 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 no. But until we're able to establish that exercise with a little bit of a high larynx, with that nay, 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 is extremely powerful, very useful.
But we don't sing that. We don't talk that way, so why would we speak? Why would we sing that way?
Now, there are some other singers out there, particularly I'd say in R&B and in gospel, where sometimes the larynx is up. And it might be on those higher kinds of, and even in some pop and rock, but it might be in that higher thing where you're almost doing a kind of that bratty sound to sustain a note, or to do a riff or a run. But if I said, let's see. So I would have to say that my larynx is up a little bit there. I'm not pulling the chest, and I'm not screaming. I'm not yelling or anything like that. But that particular, I could use that in a rock piece or rock number. And so there are times when the larynx, in terms of that pharyngeal sound, the larynx may be up. But I don't think we ever want to have to do something that is always going to raise the larynx when we're singing. Some genres accepted. I mean, there's some genres, where it just, the kinds of tones and sounds and so forth are going to have a higher larynx. If you want to listen to, like, Jennifer Hudson, she sings, she's doing a tribute, and she's singing Over the Rainbow, and she just, oh, man, that's one I'm thinking of. I know there's probably others, but it's really awesome what she's doing. But she goes, I don't know, off the charts. I can't remember how high it is, but it's just, let me see. Only she's up here somewhere. It's just like, whoa, crazy. So in those cases, the larynx would probably be slightly elevated. But when you come back down, you don't keep that same, you don't keep the same raised larynx. All right. That's about all I have to say about that. Waffles for Day says that in rock metal music, the larynx might go up when you're belting. Yeah, so, and the word belting has a lot of different connotations. There's a lot of different definitions of belting. There's a university here in my area that teaches belt, and it's kind of a high larynx kind of coordination. And I don't particularly feel like it's necessary, but I have some friends who feel like it's deadly necessary. I think it's possible to do a mixed voice and have as much power and as much energy and power as any technique. But they are not doing what another definition of belt is, where you're just yelling up the low voice and the vocal cords are they're not making any adjustment at all for a mid or upper range, and you're not transitioning into any kind of a mix or head voice. They're just yelling this up. That's a definition of belt that's used a lot, and that is damaging to the voice. It will injure you, and you will have nodules, you will have hemorrhages, and you will have surgeries. And there are a lot of singers out there who have done that, not probably never meaning to, but do it and end up damaging their voices. And there's a lot in the professional ranks that have happened too. That was Jennifer Hudson impression. Sorry, Akshay. No, it wasn't. I could never get close to what Jennifer Hudson can do. She's amazing. And I guess that was my poor attempt to make a point. Okay. So other comments from you guys. Hi, Dana. Nice to have you here today. Or Dana, excuse me. Is there a difference between belting and musical? Is there a difference between belting and musical theater? Yes, there is. Not all musical theater is belt. In fact, much of it's not belt. But there is a bite and a cut to it, Dana. But it's not necessarily belt. So, belt is more of a technique, and a musical theater, it varies. You could in the theater locally here, we've had musical theater production Pirates of Penzance by Gilmore and Sullivan, and it was an opera. It's an operetta, a comedy opera. And then there are some shows where the singers are belting. There are other shows where it's a very legit kind of sound, very classical kind of sounding. Even the older, like let's just say the music from Camelot, which was back in the 60s, Julie Andrews, she doesn't belt it. And so belting and musical theater are not necessarily synonymous, and they are definitely not used. Musical theater is not always a belt technique, or singing a musical theater number. Good question. I don't consider belting a technique. I just view it as a kind of tool like vibrato. Okay. There's as I mentioned, there's a university out here that has that teaches belt. That's what they teach. They call it. We call it belt. And so Ink says, how can Jennifer Hudson sing without warming up? Doesn't she warm up? And the video says she doesn't warm up. And literally, hit high notes easily in the morning. I don't know how she does that. Akshay says, people, please don't go off topic, please. Thanks, Akshay. Yeah, he's in the middle of the night. He's trying, he's got to go back to sleep here. All right. Any other comments, you guys? Because I think so to summarize, if you have a high larynx and you can't get it down and it's preventing you from singing, then I really recommend you take the vocal test. It's on the home page, Power to Sing. But there's also a PDF that you can download. You download the PDF. It's after this thing is over today, after the show is over, down in the description area, there's a link to a PDF. It's a link to the vocal test. It's a link to your vocal type, which is full chest high larynx, or flip falsetto, or light chest no chest, or mix. It takes you right to the pages. It takes you to the videos and there are links right to the exercises that you download to practice it. Because if you have pull chest, high larynx, or flip falsetto, those two especially, you definitely want, and even on the light chest, note chest, the larynx can be high. We want to get the larynx down because it's preventing you from being able to connect, or it's preventing you from, it's causing you to squeeze and splat the notes and so forth. So you want to get your vocal type and do the exercises for the vocal type, and do that by getting the PDF below, and it's going to save you a lot of time, so it's going to save you. But it gets you right to the exercises you need. So in summary, I think the point is that we want to sing with the larynx at speech level, where we talk. And we don't want to be singing with an imposed larynx.
And we don't want to be singing with an elevated larynx, because we don't talk that way, so why would we want to sing that way?
Unless you're playing some character in musical theater, and then you may have that little, but you can use that little bratty nay, nay, nay to prepare you for that kind of thing. And you would sing the song with a little bit of the nay, nay, nay in it. I'm just a girl who can't say no, that kind of thing. And there may be some extreme, like gospel singing or some extreme R&B where, the larynx is going to be, where they're going to have that little pharyngeal sound, that nay, 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 in the song itself, in the words, in the coordination. So the larynx may be slightly elevated, but generally speaking, we want to sing where we speak, and that is where the larynx is at the level of where we speak. So, thank you everyone for your participation. Thanks. Tuchuk says have a nice, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. For those in the States, happy Thanksgiving. I think, and Canada. George, again, our prayers are with you, your friends and family there in Paradise, California. And thankful that you are alive, sir. Thankful that you're alive. Jorge says, how do you tell you are raising your larynx? Jorge, so if the vowel changes, if I said, oh, larynx is raising. Or, larynx is raising. If I raise my chin and reach up, the larynx is raising. If the vowel starts to spread and splat, if the vowel changes, if the words get out of sort so you can't even understand what we're saying, typically it's because the larynx is coming up. If you feel like you're straining, like it's getting really pinched and hard to reach the high notes, the larynx is coming up. If you crack or break in the falsetto, the larynx is coming up. So basically, most everything that causes us trouble is the rising larynx. We're going into swallowing mode. It's good question. Yes, George, thank you. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving, and I hope you have some friends and family that can have you there for Thanksgiving. Well, I'm just a girl who can't keep her larynx low. That's great, Akshay. That's awesome. I love that. Alive is what means the most. Thank you. That is a lesson for us all. Thanksgiving is in October. But, oh, thanks, Marty. I didn't realize. I was thinking it was also but thank you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And this is Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing Live. You can sing higher with beauty, confidence, and power. I'll see you inside the next video and our next stream. Thanks.